Hey and welcome back to my corner. Now, I was going to make this video in time for Thomas the Tank Engine's 79th anniversary on March 12th, but then Brett Cooper lied about the Boy Scouts of America, so that took up a whole weekend, and dear God, I hope I never have to talk about her on the channel again. So, it's months overdue. Finally, I'm going to talk about it. Hooray. Before we get into the movie, because yes, I'm talking about that. Ew. Just a brief setup. So, the year is 2018. We're at the tail end of the Andrew Brenner era with season 21 in 2017, which introduced bouncing for some ungodly reason. Now, keep in mind, at the bare minimum, it's somewhat subdued so that it's not horrendously abused like it is here, but it is season 21's fault, so why? But coming off of that, Mattel wanted to rebrand the series so that Thomas goes around the world. Wow. And here's that story. Let's get right into it. The movie starts with a very flattering view of a tar wagon's brakes being locked on. So Gordon teases Thomas about not being able to push the trucks, which is valid. And then some workmen go over to fix the brakes. And while they're doing that, Thomas goes on his little rant about what his dream is.
Laugh if you like, Gordon. You always think I'm too small to do anything, but I'm going to go far. I'm going to see the world one day. Just you wait and see.
I wanted to comment real quick. This really highlights the difference between dreams that kids have and dreams that adults have, because, and I'm not calling Thomas a child, the dreams children have is like, I want to see the world, or when I was 5, I want to be a chemist. But now, it's not that they go away necessarily, it's more that you reprioritize, and it's like, oh, this is more important to me now. Like, my dreams nowadays are that things become more affordable, and kids stop singing Erica as soon as I speak German. Thomas didn't realize the workmen released the brakes, so he gives the tar wagons a big bump, which derails all three of them. This is a nice change of scene. It's quiet, it's peaceful. We see Reverend Audrey riding a bike up the path, and then this car almost commits an act of murder. Who's the driver? This guy needs to be in prison. G'day! Of course he's an Australian. Why wouldn't he be? So the car's name is Ace, and he asks the Flying Scotsman if this is the way to the island of Sodor. And he says, yeah, obviously, but it's a railway line, not for cars. So then Ace decides to be one of the bad boys and just finds a spot of fencing that is down and just almost creates a serious lethal crash. How is this driver not in prison? So going back to the yard, Thomas now has to take these trucks of fish. Why are they even here? To Vickerstown, even though James was supposed to do it, but he's not here. And he also has to fetch Gordon's express coaches, which Thomas decides to attach the fish to that train. So, 2 birds with 1 stone. Then we cut to Bertie, who's singing a song from Journey Beyond Sodor, and Ace decides to be a very bad driver, or risky driver, again! Then he's driving alongside Thomas and challenges him to a race, because of reasons, which he loses. Then Thomas wishes he was a car for some reason, even though this isn't really consistent with his character, because even going back to season 1, he bullied Terrence because he had what ugly wheels you've got. I like my rails. And now he wants to do 360s. Ace tells Thomas he's off to catch a ship to take him to one of many races he's going to be a part of. And by doing this, he attracts Thomas like a bad boy attracts ladies. These races go around the world, and Thomas now wants to go around the world. Which is a whole nother thing that's just absolutely wrong about the Bawaba era. These dream sequences, they are so dumb sometimes, and they're so annoying consistently. Why did they feel the need to make this? And this isn't a problem specifically to the movie. It is also in the entirety of seasons 22, 23, and 24. I don't know why they felt the need to do this, but they did, and sometimes these dream sequences can take otherwise perfectly good episodes. I get it, they're rare, but Wubba generally is bad, but there are a couple good episodes in it. They can turn otherwise good episodes, those otherwise good episodes, into bad ones. That's how bad they are. So at Vickerstown, Gordon realizes that Thomas attached the fish trucks to his train, and now he's very angry with Thomas. Now Thomas introduces the idea of an engine going around the world to the Fat Controller. And here's the thing. The Fat Controller is very clearly not telling Thomas to go around the world. Okay? He talks to him about, yeah, it would be a marvelous accomplishment to do. Yeah. He didn't say, yeah, go do it, which this point is incredibly important for later on. The very next scene displays how Thomas is now missing and no one can find, and everyone's trying to look for him. And this is the first song of the movie, which is okay. And real quick, there are a bunch of references to other things in the series, so let me just point them out real quick. If I'm correct, which feel free to correct me in the comments below if you like, but these references are as follows. The Season 1 episodes Thomas and the Trucks and Down the Mine. The Season 2 episode Percy Takes the Plunge. The Season 1 episode The Sad Story of Henry. The Season 2 episode of Thomas Comes to Breakfast. I think the 2009 movie Hero of the Rails. The 2010 movie Misty Island Rescue. Either the Season 6 episode The Fogman or the Season 7 episode Percy Gets It Right. The Season 5 episode Duncan Gets Spooked. I believe the Railway series book Mountain Engines, but I'm not sure. The 2012 movie Blue Mountain Mystery. The closest thing I can think of for the first one is Thomas and the Great Race, maybe? And then the second one's definitely Journey Beyond Sodor. Emily finds out what happened to Thomas and tells the Fat Controller. Now, what happened was, he got Carly to load him onto a ship. It's really hard to believe that that could just happen without any orders. Somebody's getting fired. So everyone on the island of Sodor basically is looking for Thomas because they're worried about him. And turns out Thomas took a ship to Africa with a complete lack of care for anyone that could possibly be worried about him. And in my opinion, this is part of how they destroy his character. Wait, hang on a second. So, as soon as Thomas is put down, he's able to move? Number one, I see at least one person climb into Thomas's cab right before he moves. Okay, so where was the driver and fireman, first of all? Two, did they leave a fire in the firebox the entire time they were in the ship? That's certainly not a hazard. Didn't the driver and fireman also technically steal Thomas from the Fat Controller? Because they're employed by him. I wouldn't think they own Thomas. So they're criminals now, I guess? So they're probably also getting fired. So Ace explains that this race goes from this place in Senegal, by the way. Yes, we're in the real country of Senegal, all the way across Africa to Dar es Salaam, which is a real city in Tanzania. And then from there, they're gonna take a ship to Rio. So the race starts, and Thomas now has to find a way to get to Dar es Salaam, which finding a path is a lot easier than he thought because there are conveniently a bunch of trucks right there that need to be taken to Dar es Salaam.
Well,
You look smaller, slower, and much, much less useful than the engine I was expecting, eh? How are you going to pull so many trucks, eh? A little engine like you, eh?
So Thomas volunteers to pull him. Just so that you're aware, that guy is not bullying Thomas in any way, shape, or form. It's not like, oh, you can't, you're small. No, that's not the issue. There are a few trucks now, but every time Thomas stops, there are gonna be a lot more added. So that's why he made the comments. And so, as you'll see later on, the Fat Controller confronts Carly for loading Thomas onto a ship, and she explains that that Thomas's idea was approved by him. Yeah, many people are definitely getting fired. And look at that, the Fat Controller actually cares about Thomas, so he goes out to actually look for him. He wants to be on the next ship to Dakar, which is the capital of Senegal.
Oh dear, oh dear. I need to find Thomas and bring him back before something happens to him. I need to be on the next ship for Dakar.
Oh, yes, sir.
No, Carly! What are you doing? You don't know people on the ships with your hook. Oh, yeah, that's it. All right.
Sorry, sir.
Oh my god, people are getting fired. Like, a few dozen maybe. So Thomas keeps getting stopped and having more trucks added to his train until it's a really, really long train of trucks. Are you starting to see the first guy's point? Because I am. Oh look, a wild diversity hire has appeared. This is Nia, and she's going to be tagging along because she's not busy. But Thomas insists that he can pull this long train of trucks on his own. As Thomas is going up the African Gordon's Hill, he blames the trucks because they're always a pain on Sodor, so they must be what the problem is here. And so Thomas starts to fall down the hill, and Nia catches him because she had nothing better to do other than stalking him. Thomas begrudgingly accepts Nia's help, and he's very grumpy that Dar es Salaam is 5,000 miles away from where they are. So the trucks start to sing.
Wake up!
I'm gonna be honest, this song's actually really good. Von Grundy, I think that's how you pronounce her name? I'm not sure. She just kills it with her performance in the movie. Like, she does a really good job with the character she's given. So when I'm listening to the song, I appreciate it. That still doesn't change the fact that Nia is a diversity hire. Oh, and the reason I say that is because she replaces one of the main characters of the entire show for no reason. So after telling Nia that he can just scare animals off the line by using his whistle and making the same mistake every white girl does by assuming Africa is a country and not a continent, Thomas gets scared because he's ran into an angry elephant, so he doesn't know what to do. Obviously, because he's from Britain. So the truck starts singing to get the elephant to leave them alone. Who wrote this? Like, I get it, it's true you can sing to an elephant to calm it down, but really? Really? Like, here? This is just so forced, in my opinion. Like, you could take this scene out of the entire movie and it'd still be the same. So the Fat Controller ends up in Dakar, where he asks if anyone knows where Thomas went, which one guy does, and the Fat Controller goes with him into the Sahara. And a camel eats his hat. So that's fun. So Thomas has now made it to Dar es Salaam, which, let's give you a bit of a scale as to how far he's gone so far. So he started at the island of Sodor, which is right here. Then he goes down south to Dakar. Then he goes 5,000 miles, I think, to Dar es Salaam. Now that's assuming Thomas went in a straight line, which I guarantee you he didn't. That's a grand total of 6,985.89 miles. Thomas asks the trucks and Nia to keep an eye out for Ace, who is really cool and is yellow and he can spin. Oh, what's so special about him? Just being able to spin? I can spin too! So Nia thought Thomas was doing everything by himself. She's surprised that Ace is going around the world with him together.
Ace and I came to Africa together, Nia. We're going to go all the way around the world.
Together? You're going around the world together? I thought you wanted to do everything by yourself. I thought you didn't need any help.
Well, Ace isn't helping me.
Yeah, sure, buddy, sure. Then this locomotive appears, which I don't know if this is based on a real steam locomotive or if it's something the writers just cooked up. I have no idea. Like, what is this thing? This thing asks Nia if she found a new shed to be in, and before she can answer, Thomas asks about if there were any race cars in this area, and this thing says there were, but they're gone now. Okay, I'm not gonna spoil it, but they use the detail of Nia not having a shed to justify some future plot events. But just because you don't have a shed, does that not mean you're still property of the railway you're on if you're a steam locomotive? So wouldn't you need to be purchased from the other railway? So the amount of property theft in this movie is insane. Nia questions how good of a friend Ace is to Thomas, which, you know, she's got a fair point. Thomas asks Nia to go home and tells her that he's going to find a ship that's going to Rio. And knowing Nia, she's gonna stalk him. Again. So the two go to Rio together. Many hours later. Thomas is kept awake by the fact that Nia snores, and the wind lifts up the tarp that's covering
Ace?
and they're together at last. Then Ace talks about being a free spirit and talking to Thomas that he should be a free spirit and get rid of his extra baggage, which is Nia. And let's just be honest, Ace is the Andrew Tate of this universe. Everyone makes it to Rio, and let's just go over a more accurate depiction of what Thomas's journey has looked like so far. So Thomas starts on the island of Sodor, then goes down the African coast to Dakar, then crosses the Sahara Desert and goes south until he makes it to Dar es Salaam. Then he goes around South Africa to make it all the way to Rio. He has now gone a grand total of 14,828.41 miles. So Ace's next race is going through the Amazon, and Thomas is excited because he'll now be able to go with him because there are bound to be rails. Thomas goes to fill up with coal and water, but the worker there stops him because he's not doing anything. But if Thomas agrees to take this train through the Amazon, he can fill up with as much as he wants. May I inform you that this is a freight train delivering coffee to San Francisco. Now, why would you want to go to San Francisco to verify if the poop maps are real? So it turns out there are so many trucks that Thomas can't do it alone, so Nia ends up stalking him again. Now, Thomas, seeing that trying to get Nia to leave him alone is about as effective as reporting a stalker to the police, he allows her to come very begrudgingly, and she starts singing a song about how they're friends.
Anywhere you go, I really want to go with you.
That's what restraining orders are for. Nia recommends that Thomas fill up his water tanks, but he doesn't want to because he's so starstruck by catching up with Ace. Then there's another one of these godforsaken dream sequences, which, oh my, oh. This is so bad. Then we take a real quick look at how much of a very splendid time the Fat Controller's having crossing the Sahara. Ace somehow got into a crash, so he's on his roof, and he's terrified of monkeys, which is played as kind of stupid, but you know what? Fair point. Especially since a lot of the wildlife can have malaria, and there's leprosy common. I see Ace's point. So Ace gets loaded on top of the coffee, and he talks about the next race being in the Salt Flats, Utah. I mean, Utah's better than San Francisco, but that's another why would you ever go there place. So Thomas runs out of water, and then we see the extent of Nia's character, which is just a kind, smart girl character, and there's nothing else to her. So Thomas and Nia's driver make a funnel out of leaves to catch some water. And conveniently, there's a rainstorm right there. With their boilers full, this is where Thomas starts to take a liking to Nia for some reason. The Fat Controller is now in Dar es Salaam, and he found out that Thomas went to Rio.
May I?
Not again!
Yes, I've seen that tank engine. I loaded them onto a ship heading for Rio de Janeiro in Brazil.
How is this not an international incident? And he gets a new hat. Because it's raining, the dirt is turning to mud, and the rails are sinking. So Thomas and Nia rush across the bridge to safety. But wait, the bridge partially collapses. Other than losing a couple bags of coffee, Thomas and Nia pull all the trucks to safety, right before the bridge collapses. Now the trucks have PTSD. Ace starts to sing about being a free spirit, and even though he's appreciative of Thomas for taking him to the Salt Flats to get repaired and all that, he still prefers driving on his own, which immediately after this makes sense. So the Fat Controller arrives in Rio and gets his hat replaced with a new hat, and finds out Thomas is heading to San Francisco, and he sees an ad for a plane that he's gonna take up. So Thomas and Nia are now in God knows where, USA, where they pass a steam locomotive who is weirded out by Nia because literally anyone would be weirded out if some random stranger started talking to you.
Well, I'll tell you something that's even more important than being useful or keeping promises. Having fun.
And that, my friend, is the fastest way to lose a girlfriend.
Ah, never you mind now, darling. No harm done.
Why does everyone here sound like they're from the South? We're either in, like, Southern California or Arizona or somewhere like that. Why does everyone sound like they're from Texas, Florida, Mississippi? Briefly, we cut to the Fat Controller looking for Thomas from an airplane. So Ace manipulates Thomas and Nia by playing into their egos into having a race, which allows Thomas to take him to the Salt Flats instead of, San Francisco. Eventually, that goes about as well as you expect it to. Fortunately, for the sake of everyone and the plot, people come to rescue them. Now that they're back on the line again, they both head to the Salt Flats. The Fat Controller, now with a new hat, asks the shunting diesel if she's seen Thomas. She did see a tank engine coming in with coffee, but that was Nia, so the Fat Controller is depressed. Thomas dumps the loser that is Ace in the Salt Flats of Utah and goes to a terrible, terrible place. That is San Francisco, California. When he gets there, he finds out that Nia got on a ship for China. Thomas pleads to get loaded onto a crane, and like all of our American manufacturing jobs, head to China. Thomas starts to sing about missing Nia, which, honestly, this is a really good song, but it highlights a very big problem with his character in this movie, that he does not care about anyone from the island of Sodor. He cares more about some random girl he came across in Africa than he does friends and people he's known for decades. Hang on a second. Thomas finally, at long last, lost the stalker. Nia was stalking him this whole time. He finally lost her. And what is this? So continuing from where we last left off, he made it up through the Amazon, all the way through Central America, up Mexico, through either California or Arizona or both. Nia heads straight to San Francisco while Thomas heads about here in Utah, and then Thomas heads to San Francisco, and then Thomas gets on a ship bound for China. He's now gone about 30,448.25 miles. Thomas finds out that Nia was heading to the Rainbow Mountains, so that's where he sets off for. Thomas apologizes to Nia, so they make friendly, and Nia got swept up in an avalanche, and she's now hanging off a cliff. So Thomas does something heroic and also stupid, and tries to pull Nia up from the cliff, which doesn't work because he's not strong enough to do it, so he starts falling down the cliff too. But then Young Bao, this character originally from The Great Race, he saves them both. Young Bao asks Thomas where he's going next, and I wonder, why is it that Nia is the first to answer back to Sodor? It seems like she cares more about Sodor than Thomas does. Now Thomas and Nia sing the same song they were singing in Brazil, except in a much happier way, and they sing it all the way back to the Vickerstown Bridge. A man in India figures to call the Fat Controller's office that he saw Thomas and now he's heading back to Sodor. And Mr. Percival's in the office at the moment, and he goes ecstatic. So a final recap on Thomas's journey. He starts at the island of Sodor, goes down the Atlantic to Dakar, crosses the Sahara all the way to about this point in Ethiopia, heads south all the way to Dar es Salaam, takes a ship to Rio, goes all the way through the Amazon, up Central America, through Mexico, and I think a combination of Arizona and California, only for Thomas to head to the Salt Flats and then San Francisco, get on a ship for China, head through many Asian countries all the way to about this point in India, visits Moscow, visits somewhere in Italy, maybe Milan, I don't know, goes to France, I think Paris, I'm not entirely sure, and then somehow ends up all the way back on the mainland of the United Kingdom, right about here, and then he finishes on the island of Sodor, successfully going all the way around the world. He has gone about 37,892.56 miles. Alright, we're finally done with the map stuff now. Remember the thing I said about Nia not having a shed being related to the plot later? Here it is. So, Nia doesn't have a shed to go back to. So, that justifies property theft of bringing her to the island of Sodor. And that, my friend, is how Nia becomes a permanent resident of the United Kingdom. Everyone greets Thomas a welcome home party, even though he doesn't deserve it because he abandoned all of them without any care in the world. Nia introduces herself to everyone, and everyone else thought that the Fat Controller would be with Thomas, and he's not, so this is the first time Thomas has ever, in this entire movie, thought about anyone from the island of Sodor, wondering where in the world is the Fat Controller. And he's still looking for Thomas on a ship with a brand new hat. Woo! Okay, so that's finally done. So, is it as bad as people say it is? No, I mean, it's better than people say. Slightly. Like, instead of... Think about this way, letter grades back in school. If people gave this movie an F, like a 20% F, I would give this like a 30% F. Like, it's still bad, but, like, don't get me wrong, it's still bad. But it's not as bad as people make it out to be. But what's painful about this movie is that the concept is not a bad idea. Theoretically, Thomas going around the world, not a bad idea in concept. The execution here is abysmal. I'd love to see someone come along and actually write a better version of this movie. Like, keep the concept maybe. Like, challenge. Keep the concept of the movie while actually making it good. And without destroying Thomas's character. But because this is a special video, I want to make a little special ending. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked that video. If you did, go ahead and follow the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't know why you're watching on YouTube because it's a worse platform. Go to Rumble. But if you are on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!